Did you know that the first person brave enough to appear on the cover of the latter was an Indonesian lesbian named Ger van Braam? Neither did I until one of the curators of a digital exhibit about her life emailed me last month. Welcome back to Yesterqueers. My name's Amanda, and I'm a public historian of queer history. Ger van Braam was born August 31st, 1927 in what is now Jakarta, the seventh of 9 daughters born to a wealthy Indo-Dutch family. The first few decades of van Braam's life were, according to the exhibit, marked by conflict and large-scale political and social transition. By the time van Braam was 19, she and her family had been put in concentration camps twice. Once by the Japanese in 1942 after the Dutch colonial government surrendered to invading Japanese forces, and once in 1946 by the Indonesian army, who were actually attempting to protect Indo-Dutch people from the Dutch forces trying to recolonize Indonesia. After Indonesia won its independence, van Braam decided to stay in the country of her birth and became an Indonesian national on November 12, 1951. So how did a woman trying to make her way in a newly independent nation end up on the cover of a lesbian publication halfway around the world? Well, first she blew up her life. She left her husband and then basically disappeared for an entire year to avoid the wrath of her family. As she wrote in one of her letters, "We are a rather united family, very fond of each other, so they suffered really when they heard nothing whatsoever from me. When I emerged after a year, all was forgotten as if nothing had happened." Then she made some queer friends, realizing to her delight that she was not the only lesbian in Indonesia. Eventually, she even fell in love with a woman named Hetty who left her own husband to be with Ger. I don't know how van Braam became aware of the latter, but she was a subscriber, and in 1963, she submitted a story called A Dope for publication that was about a stewardess named Joan and an artist named Lola. Barbara Giddings, the editor of the latter, included a note when she sent Ger's copy of the August 1963 issue. Giddings was very curious about the lives of lesbians living outside the US, and not only urged van Braam to write more for the latter, but also asked her to encourage her friends who spoke English to write for them as well. Ger van Braam and Barbara Giddings struck up a correspondence, and their letters, written in 1963 and 1964, make up the backbone of this exhibit. In one of her first letters to Giddings, van Braam wrote candidly about the loneliness and isolation she felt as a lesbian in Indonesia. Feelings that resonated deeply with the latter's leadership when the letter was published with van Braam's permission in 1964. In fact, the latter's subscribers were so interested in van Braam's story that Giddings asked if she could publish the rest of her letters, as well as a photo that van Braam had sent to her. The latter had relied exclusively on line drawings up to that point. No one had been courageous enough to put their face in the pages of the magazine, much less on the cover. Ger van Braam agreed enthusiastically. The niche nature of the latter, combined with its mostly US audience, meant that Ger felt she could remain closeted in her daily life while still appearing on the cover of the latter and having her letters published in its pages. In a post about van Braam in 2020, the One Archives wrote, "Van Braam's exuberant letters capture the importance of the latter to van Braam and readers like her for disseminating information and assuring them that they were not alone. In turn, van Braam gave back to this community by allowing the editors to publish her notes and picture. Van Braam's portrait underscores how the safety and community fostered by the latter empowered her, and how her courageous act made others feel safer in coming forward. This example illustrates how safety is created and multiplied, and how it requires bravery on the parts of individuals who inadvertently become role models." Letters from Ger is a digital exhibition of the Queer Indonesia Archive, and it's curated by Harits Paramatsatya and Bo Nuim, who's the one who reached out to me. It's beautifully done and includes videos of people reading the letters between Ger and Barbara. The Queer Indonesia Archive is volunteer-run, community-focused, and not-for-profit, and they did not pay me to make this video. I just think this is a really cool piece of queer history. That's it for today. As always, more information, including a link to Letters from Ger, is available in the usual place.